Okay. School district culture and climate. As I said, this is kind of the heart and the core that allows things to happen. When you have an effective culture and climate, you increase the likelihood of all of the things that I talked about: instructional practices, interventions, supports, wraparound services, student assistance programs, all of those things to happen effectively. The key point is effective communication, right? When you're able to communicate, it is the backbone of a well-functioning school. So as you see the different colored areas that I'll hit on, effective communication improves instructional clarity, provides feedback loops so that there's communication between teachers and students, students and teachers, teachers and parents, administration, leaders and teachers, administration and parents, and also between the school board, stakeholders, community stakeholders as well, and opportunities for them to communicate with the school board. Also, it enables and increases the likelihood for effective collaboration, which those of you that are watching this presentation now are part of that. Collaborating with the school district. The one key reason we're providing this so you can better understand the components of the school, so you can collaborate effectively and use effective language that is also going to resonate and make sense to those folks you're partnering with in the school district. It also, as I said, promotes parent-teacher-student partnerships. It increases the likelihood of administrator efficiency. It helps with conflict resolution in the area of professional development as well, and overall that strong school culture. The next area I'm going to talk about is social emotional learning. So this diagram and this what we have right here comes from CASEL, which is the Collaborative of Social Emotional Learning, which is based in Chicago, Illinois. And these are known as the CASEL Five. And these CASEL Fives are the social emotional network and the core components. And as you see, the core components are self-awareness, self-management, responsible decision-making, relationship skills, and social awareness. And as you see, as the blue rings outside of it, that's where it takes place. So social emotional learning takes place in schools and classrooms through SEL instruction and classroom climate. It takes place in schools in terms of overall school-wide culture and practices and policies. It takes place with families and caregivers in terms of authentic relationships that can happen between them and also in the school. And finally, it takes place in communities in terms of aligning learning opportunities. What does the community want? What does the community need? What's necessary so that they can stay ahead of the curve and also provide the necessary support that takes place. For those of you that are coming from the communities, the community area, when we talk about stakeholders in schools, you refer to them as sectors. It's the same thing, just different language, but it's the same thing, understanding the necessary components of that. So I'm going to briefly kind of give you an overview of these areas. So self-awareness is basically being able to understand yourself, your strengths, your challenges, highlighted by these areas you see in the bullets. I'll just highlight a couple of them: being able to understand your own emotions, recognizing your strengths, and also self-efficacy. Self-management is basically being able to regulate your own emotions, being able to monitor your thoughts and your behaviors. And it's highlighted by things such as impulse control, managing your stress, self-discipline, motivation, and goal setting. These are components, obviously, not only for students, but also for adults as well. We want to make sure that our adults are well in managing themselves in terms of their emotions, so they can be the best for their students in the way things that they provide. The next area is responsible decision making, and this comes into making good choices based upon social norms, ethical standards, safety concerns, and this is for students, making sure that they're making right choices and making good choices. But also, it helps with analyzing problems, evaluating, and reflecting and understanding ethical responsibilities. Relationship skills, which is the backbone of everything, right? Relationships, and relationships. And this is, establishing and maintaining and sustaining healthy relationships with diverse members of, your staff, with diverse students and their peers, and being able to do that, right? Building these relationship skills and the components that are communication and also relationship building and also teamwork. And finally, social awareness. And this is the ability to take the perspective of others and understand where others are coming from, being able to have empathy, and especially for folks that are different from you and that come from a different knowledge base, different skill base, and come from diverse backgrounds, and understanding the different ethical norms and social norms of behavior in different settings, such as the school, family, community, and also the resource supports are necessary. The one key element of this is the respect from others and empathy, and also taking perspective. This right here is the Ohio improvement process. And this is very similar to the strategic prevention framework that you all may be familiar with, but this is the way in which that, the schools in Ohio make their decisions. It helps them to create a strategic plan or an improvement plan for the district and also for each individual school. And it looks at data. So these 5 areas I'm going to talk about briefly and kind of give you some concepts and ideas of what that looks like and examples. So first, looking like what are the core beliefs of the district and school, right? And looking at the components of shared leadership, communication engagement, and also purposeful decision making. This also talks about the mission, the vision, and the core beliefs of the district, making sure it's clear, concise, and making sure that districts develop and implement continuous improvement process that are aligned with the vision and mission and core beliefs of the districts in the schools, which comes from those stakeholders, right? Comes from the community, comes from the board members, it comes from the stakeholders in the key sectors as well. And then we talk about collaborative teams and identifying what that means. So there's 3 teams that make decisions within the school and the school improvement process. You have the district leadership team. So those components that I talked about earlier. So leaders in the district, such as the area of the business official, the superintendent, the teaching, learning, assessment, and also special education. Key folks that understand that dynamic have a team. And then there's a building leadership team. The building leadership team is made up of folks in the school building. So often the leadership is the principal, assistant principal. Also could be, if it's in a high school, could be a department chair or a divisional chair. But it also made up of also folks of the collective bargaining agreement in the union. So you could have a union president, vice president, officer, a part of that building leadership team, because you're talking about all components of teaching, learning, assessment. You're looking at data for behavior, social emotional learning, and needs of the overall building that are specific, that may be different and may be specialized for that school community versus other schools within the school district. And then you have, so these are core teachers. We're talking about student data, you're talking about student achievement, and it's a vertical and horizontal articulation that takes place so that everyone understands what's necessary in the area of teaching, learning, assessment, but also professional development as well. So once again, talking about some shared leadership roles and responsibilities that are necessary. So that's communication, engagement, purposeful decision-making, and resource management. The great thing about the state of Ohio that you have a clearinghouse that has interventions that are provided based upon you identify your needs. You can match those needs with interventions that are evidence-based in your clearinghouse. All these strategies are necessary, and this is where you all come into play. As we talked about the multi-tiered system of support, this is where those tier 2 in that yellow area, a lot of these interventions come into play to help students with needs that are maybe there's a deficit or there's a gap in English language arts, mathematics, or social emotional learning as well. Then we talk about creating a plan. Within the plan, you want to make sure that the goals are SMART. They're specific, they're measurable, attainable, and achievable, realistic, and relevant and timely. In terms of them being measurable, you want a date and a time, right? So you know, in a percentage or out of how many times, so you can begin to look at it and monitor it. You want to make sure it's attainable and achievable, meaning like it's great to have a vision, but you also want to make sure that it's something that the district or the school has the capacity to do. There may be a need, but if there's not a level of readiness to match that need, you don't want to create goals that are out of reach. And making sure that they're also realistic and relevant, and also they happen. Here's some just components of the plan as well, making sure that components such as professional learning happen that are aligned with data, human capital allocation, so that you're having the right people in the right positions to make sure that things happen, and also that you have the fiscal resources, right, to make sure that they happen, and then a clear outline of the roles of the system as well, so everyone comes into play. And this is part of that effective communication that I talked about earlier. So this is some of the plan elements as well. And then the fourth step is implementing and monitoring the plan, right? So that all these teams that I talked about, the DLT, the BLT, and the teacher-based teams, right? They're going to monitor, right, and learning about the implementation of the adult practices. So what are the adults doing in terms of the interventions, but also how that work of the adults has the impact of the student outcomes. So you could have a great plan, you could have a great intervention that's evidence-based, but if the adults are the ones that are implementing it, they're not implementing with fidelity, they're not understanding the needs of the students, there could be a likelihood that those interventions may not be successful and you won't see the gains that you need to see. So it's important to monitor what's going on with the adults that are implementing those practices as well. And then the fifth step is examining, right? So you want to reflect on it, you want to adjust if necessary, and see what's necessary to happen. And these are the three questions you should ask yourself for examine, reflect, and adjust. Where do we start? So where do we begin? Being able to reflect and look at that. It's a key component as we talked about in communication as well. Where are we now, right? In the present, okay? So we started here. Where are we currently now? Did we make growth? Did we not make any growth? Were we stagnant? You know, are we in a worse place than we were before? And then the third question, where do we go next, right? What is necessary to happen? Do we need to make a course direction because maybe we thought this intervention was great, but maybe it's not as successful because we don't have the capacity to be able to pull that intervention off? Is the intervention working even better? Now, maybe do we want to scale it to go from other student groups or more students to participate, or maybe we take it district wide. But the question is to be able to evaluate and understand that and examine it. So the three questions that you want to know: where do we start? Where are we right now? And where do we go next? So I hope this was some great information for you all, providing you at least a brief look and give you a foundational understanding of how school districts work, understanding their function, the way that they operate, understanding some key terms and some definitions that can allow you to kind of be able to understand that. And you know, the other thing that I will say is this. After viewing this, take a look, reflect, go to the slides, and look at some of the key components and do a deeper dive for yourself. Begin to look at it, how it applies to your role in the way that you support districts. Take a look at social emotional learning. Do a deeper dive in what that in those Castle 5 areas and what that looks like and how you can begin to use that language, but also how does that align to your current work that you're doing. Take a deep dive and look at the Ohio improvement process. That is available to you. It's online. You can go ahead and look on the state website, you know, through the Ohio Department of Education, and you will find the Ohio improvement process. Begin to know that. Break it down, understand that, because the more you understand that process, the better you can find the spots for you to be successful and be able to operate and be at the highest level to be successful for the districts and the schools that you support. Thank you very much. Have a great day and be well and keep doing what you do for schools and families. Thank you.